Alright everyone, it's been a week now since I first got my hands on this 16-inch base MacBook Pro. Needless to say, I'm thoroughly impressed with its performance. Despite the fact that I tend to lean toward using a MacBook Pro in the clamshell mode and then using my external monitor, I found myself drawn toward using this as a standalone device and being fully immersed in that beautiful user experience and really enjoying the changes that Apple have made to their MacBook Pro lineup. These new MacBook Pros have literally been all over social media for the last 2 weeks. And rightly so, because they are absolutely incredible. Its performance surpasses that of my custom built PC, so much so that it's completely taken its place as my main photo and video editing machine. As I mentioned in my unboxing video last week, my previous MacBook Pro that I used extensively as my editing machine was a 2012 MacBook Pro, the 17-inch in fact. Decked it out with RAM and extra hard drive space and things like that, and that unfortunately died a couple of years ago, and that led me to build my custom built PC, which has been great for the most part. However, I did miss my MacBook Pro, particularly because it allows me to move around the house and I can take everything with me when I'm traveling, or if I just want to get out of the house, and go and edit somewhere else, or go and meet up with some friends and edit together, whatever it may be. It allowed me that flexibility to, be on the move and have absolutely everything with me. So when Apple announced their M1 MacBook Pros last year, I was very intrigued and I did try one out. However, I was left disappointed. The performance was good, don't get me wrong. However, it was other things such as build quality, IO ports, and that gimmicky touch bar that I just didn't enjoy using. And these machines are an absolute huge investment and they're not for everybody. But if I'm gonna put that large amount of money into something, I want it to last for another 5 years like my 2012 did. In fact, that lasted 7 years. And I want it to be something that I can enjoy using every day. And that's not what those MacBook Pros did for me. So I decided to wait and see what Apple had in store and see if those rumors were true in regards to the second generation M1 MacBook Pros. And the answer is yes, those rumors were true. We got what people had been begging for going back to 2015, 2012 Apple MacBook era, with the larger design, yet introducing thinner bezels, bringing back those IO ports and bringing back that quality of life that content creators had been begging for Apple to put back into their Pro line of laptops. All right, so Apple is known for their beautifully designed products, and this 16-inch MacBook Pro is absolutely no exception. So because of this professional updated design, they've put away the slimline, low profile design of the old MacBook Pros and gone with something a bit more professional that doesn't feel like it'll break upon any moment, and given people what they wanted in a professional laptop. Things such as an upgraded chassis, 3 Thunderbolt 4 USB slots, an HDMI port, MagSafe charging, and the long-awaited SD card reader that people had been crying to return to the MacBook Pro line. Now, I'm not sure what it's like on the 14-inch MacBook Pro, but on the 16-inch, these speakers take up a lot of space, and I definitely notice an improvement in sound over the previous generation MacBook Pro when I tested it out for a little bit. That sounds very bassy and the tones are very clear, and I can definitely sit back and listen to some music. Even though I generally prefer to listen to music on my edifiers, I'm comfortable listening to songs when I'm just upstairs or somewhere else coming through the speakers of the MacBook Pro. Okay, let's talk about this screen for a second. So this screen is absolutely stunning. It is an XDR display with 1600 nit peak brightness when consuming HDR content and 1000 nit peak brightness when consuming normal content. The refresh rate is 120 Hz, which I really notice when I'm consuming content and just moving between different programs. Now, the colors on this screen are absolutely stunning. A lot of the content that I create is landscape photography, so I'm dealing with very high dynamic range scenes, and color accuracy is something that I rely heavily on. And this screen is incredibly accurate. One of the great things about this display is that it's a smart display, which means it will adjust its refresh rate to match the content that you are consuming. So if I'm playing a video game, it will put it to its maximum refresh rate of 120 Hz, giving the best performance. Or if I'm watching a TV show on Amazon Prime or on Netflix, it will lower the refresh rate to match the frames per second of that TV show. All right, so let's talk about performance now. So I really don't know where to begin with talking about how incredibly powerful this M1 Pro processor is. Now, I knew that the M1, the silicon processors were really good when I tested out the previous model. Obviously, there are things with those models that just weren't working for me, but that didn't change the fact that these silicon processors are powerful.
Now what I'm doing here is I'm creating a very short, about 37-second video that I'm going to be posting on Instagram as a reel. This is a 4K video and multiple scenes, it's got some music, and it just edits flawlessly. I don't have to proxy the videos before importing them, and I don't have to pre-render, and I'm previewing at full resolution, and there is zero lag whatsoever. Now my custom PC would be struggling to edit this. I would have to proxy and I would have to pre-render every time I added in a new clip or scene or whatever it was. If I did some color grading, I'd have to pre-render again. If I did some warp stabilization, I'd have to pre-render again. And I don't have to do any of that on this MacBook Pro. So I'm going to show you a little comparison now. Now it's not that scientific. I'm just kind of going by my workflow on two different machines. So I have the exact same video that I'm editing on the MacBook, and it took about 21 seconds to export. Now we're gonna go over to my PC and we're gonna do the exact same video and we're gonna export it and compare the times.
Okay, so we're going to use the exact same output settings that we had on the MacBook. So we're going to match source, use maximum render quality, render at maximum depth, and our target bitrate VBR1 pass, and it's going to be 35 target bitrate. So I'm actually going to time this one and we will see. Okay, 53 seconds. So that's actually a lot longer than I expected. It was going reasonably fast. And like I said, this is what I see when I was editing long YouTube videos as well, is that it goes rather fast and then it kind of slows down and bogs down right at the end. So 53 seconds versus 21 seconds. That's very significant for a 37-second video. So when I'm exporting 10-minute YouTube videos, we're going to see enormous differences.
Now I also notice huge performance in my day-to-day activities as well, whether it's browsing the web, consuming media or content, or actually creating photos. The whole process is a lot more responsive and a lot less effort on my part. Now, just to break things up a little bit, I want to show you the video that I created on this MacBook Pro, just so we can take a little bit of break from me talking, sit back and relax and enjoy this.
So obviously this laptop is very capable. It outperforms my custom built PC, although it is slightly dated, but still a very capable computer. This vastly outperforms it. So let's talk about the specifications. Like I said, this is the base model 16-inch with the M1 Pro processor. And I've chosen just to go with 16 gigabytes of RAM and the 512 gig hard drive. The reason why I decided to go with this is because I spent a lot of time before I bought this laptop looking over benchmarks and comparisons of 32 gigabytes of RAM versus 16 gigabytes of RAM. And Max Tech did a very in-depth comparison. Obviously, I don't do any 3D rendering. I just do photo editing and video editing. So that's kind of what I was looking at performance-wise. And he did some tests. So he compared the 32 gig model with the 16 gig model, and here are some of the results. So he went into Lightroom Classic and edited a ton of 42 megapixel photos. The export time for 50 42 megabyte photos, with the 32 gig model, it was 1 minute and 23 seconds, and with the 16 gig model, it was 1 minute and 25 seconds. So it took 2 seconds longer. Now the reason why this is so close is because these silicon processors use unified memory. So what happens is the system can borrow some memory from the hard drive, and you can look at it in the activity monitor, and it's called swap memory used. So what he shows is the 32 gig model just uses its base RAM, but the 16 gig model borrowed 2 gigabytes from the solid state hard drive and swapped it. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but because it's unified memory, it's kind of like all in one, so to speak, and it allows the system to pull extra RAM from the hard drive and use it to boost performance. So obviously we only see a 2-second hit because it was using swapped memory. So that just goes to show how capable the base model is. And for myself, because I went with the 16 gig, I didn't spend an extra $400 on a 32 gig.
And what I would recommend somebody do is spend $200 more or whatever it is and get the 1 terabyte hard drive space instead of going with the 512 gig. For myself, because I do a lot of my work with large video format, I just use my 4 terabyte drive in the office. And then when I'm traveling, I use a 1 terabyte SSD that then gets transferred to the 4 terabyte when I get back home, so I can keep everything backed up.
Alright, so in conclusion, Apple have really outdone themselves with this laptop. We've been given back a useful amount of I/O ports that one would expect to see in a professional offering. An absolutely stunning XDR display that renders color with near perfection, with 120Hz that is perfect for everything from consuming content to creating content. I thoroughly enjoy having the SD card reader back in this laptop that allows me to edit on the go and not have to worry about bringing extra dongles and have cables all over the place. This is something that I can see myself keeping for the next 4 to 6 years. But once again, I can't emphasize enough that this is an investment. If you think it's going to improve your workflow and help you be a more effective creator, then get it. If not, you may be more suited to one of the previous generation MacBook Pros or building yourself a budget custom PC. However, for myself, I cannot be more happy with the performance of this MacBook Pro. Thanks again for tuning into this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe to stay up to date with my new videos. Until next time, I'll see you later.